In the world of Demon Slayer, we've been introduced to so many powerful Demon Slayers, especially when it comes to Hashira, with each of them having their own unique form of fighting styles via their breathing styles, with some of them being styles that they were created by the Demon Slayers themselves. But if you've ever wondered how many different breathing styles there are and how they differ from each other, look no further, because we're going to be breaking down every single breathing style in Demon Slayer from top to bottom, telling you everything you need to know about the different forms and how they're all connected in some of these cases and how they're different in others, including answering questions that some of you guys might have after watching season 2 about the dance of the fire god. That being said, there will be some very mild spoilers in this video because we are going to be explaining breathing styles, but we will not be revealing any major information that will ruin the experience watching the anime for the first time. In order to break down the various breathing styles, we have to first look at what breathing styles are in Demon Slayer. As you know from the prior seasons, this is a form of swordsmanship training taught to the Demon Slayers in the series with unique benefits for each one that's being used. Breathing styles make use out of the breathing technique total concentration, which increases the user's lung capacity and the amount of oxygen in their bloodstream, which in turn raises their physical stats and concentration, which allows them to push out a lot more power that's needed to fight against demons who are much stronger than normal humans. Every breathing style mimics some form of an element. Even the ones like Mitsuri Kanroji's love breathing style, it's a branch off of the flame breathing style. All breathing styles that can trace their origins back to sun breathing, since it is the original breathing style in the series itself. Demon Slayers combine their breathing styles with their Nichiren blades, which is made from a special type of steel that has the power to kill demons, which makes it different from a normal blade, because if a demon is struck by a normal blade, in most cases they're not going to die, but if a Nichiren blade is used and the person that has it is strong enough to chop off the demon's head, then the demon can be killed. Each breathing style that we're going to go over places emphasis around breathing patterns to get the most out of it when being used. For anyone thinking this might be some anime nonsense that just kind of made up out of nowhere, this does actually apply in the real world as well. As someone who played football and ran track, I can use both examples to explain how the concept of mastering breathing in Demon Slayer applies in the real world itself. Breathing properly lowers the muscle tension and stress and can play a huge role in combating fatigue. When I first started running track, the first thing we were told was how to breathe properly when running. The same with football. During the off season, my coach made a point to tell us that proper breathing while lifting weights can help you lift heavier weights with a lot less effort. It's the same when you do yoga. Proper breathing is something that's stressed there as well. Now, jumping into the breathing styles themselves, we're going to be starting off with the original breathing style itself, sun breathing. Now, unbeknownst to Tanjiro for a long portion of the series, the movements of the dance that his family passed down from generation to generation can actually be traced back to sun breathing, the original breathing style in Demon Slayer. The dance that Tanjiro's family passes down comprises of 12 segments that always repeat itself, but the actual breathing technique, when mastered, allows the user to seemingly not exhaust themselves through extended use. Sun breathing is the most diverse of the breathing styles because its technique doesn't have a set pattern itself. The users visualize themselves manipulating the flames of the sun when they're using it, which leads to a massive increase in speed and power for someone like Tanjiro due to the dance being passed down through his family, making it easier for him to adjust to the movements as needed. Tanjiro, through ancestor memories, was able to replicate some of the movements of sun breathing while identifying the movements in the dance of his family that was taught to him that were actually wasted movements, which removing those same wasted movements allowed for max usage of the sun breathing. Its creator Yoichi created 13 different forms of this breathing style. So the dancing flash form is one that Tanjiro created, which builds on the dance form, which uses a vertical slash that's delivered at an arc, but Tanjiro's version combines elements from thunder breathing with the high powered slash from dance sun breathing slash in order to unleash on the enemy, moving at some of the fastest speeds that we've seen in the series itself. Raging Sun sees the user release consecutive arching slashes around them to strike down incoming objects or attacks. Summer Sun uses a spiraling motion to defend themselves from frontal attacks. Clear Blue Sky sees the user twist their body in a 360-degree motion to deliver their attack. Setting Sun sees them backflip into the air to perform a horizontal slash meant to cut off the target's head. Solar Heat Haze actually releases a blazing strike that masks the true length and the location of the blade to strike down the enemy. Fake Rainbow uses high-speed rotation to create after images that can fool the enemy. The 13th form literally combines all 12 forms of sun breathing in back-to-back use, which makes it Muzen's worst nightmare due to the complexity of the attacks and how much damage can be dished out at a short period of time. Now, water breathing is the breathing style that we see Tanjiro use for most of the series, and we see Giyu use it throughout the series itself. Water breathing has 10 basic forms, but there's an 11th form that's made by Giyu, which goes to show you why he's considered to be the water breathing user of his generation for a reason. Despite how much he beats himself up for it, he's a prodigy when it comes to water breathing. Water breathing, as the name implies, is a breathing style that mimics the flow of water, its flexibility, and its adaptability. You'll see a water breathing user bend their body and weapon to match the flow of running water for their attacks. Water breathing is the most common breathing style in the Demon Slayer courts because it's literally the easiest to master. Off branches of water breathing are flower breathing and serpent breathing, with insect breathing being an off branch of flower breathing, which is just one example we'll have of unique breathing styles that are branching off of something like water or flame breathing because the user was not able to fully master the breathing style, thus they created their own unique breathing style. The first form of water breathing sees the user cross their arms to get enough energy mustered up to release a single horizontal slash. The second form is the water wheel, which sees them leap into the air, perform a front flip, and while in a circular motion slash at the enemy. The third form sees the user swing and bend their blade in a winding motion to slice everything in the path. The fourth form sees the user release multiple slashes to attack the enemy back to back with extremely distinct accuracy. The fifth form is used by changing the grip up on the sword and is used to cut off the head of the enemy in such a fast way that the target doesn't even realize that their head's been cut. The sixth form sees them twist their body and twirl their sword in a whirling motion to make a whirlpool to slice the enemy up and cut inside the attack. The seventh form uses quick and accurate thrusts with the blade that can nullify the impact and momentum of a moving target. The eighth form cuts the target in a vertical manner and is used when falling down. The ninth form relies on the change in footwork to cut down on the landing time and the surface space needed for any type of a landing to break through without limits, and is best used when there's no solid footing on the ground for the user. The 10th form sees them raise their speed and strength over time by building on the momentum and using continuous flow of attacks with their blade. The 11th form is unique to Giyu, which sees him enter into a perfectly calm state where the speed at which he can block and deflect attacks is absolutely insane, with the only downside being that too many fast attacks being used at once can break through the 11th form itself. Given water breathing branches off to serpent breathing, we'll move on to that one next. As the name implies, it mimics the movements and the behaviors of snakes, with most of the forms mimicking snake movements in some way, shape, form, or fashion. In order to perform serpent breathing, you have to have a special blade that's made for it, similar to how love breathing, which can only be performed with the blade that's made for it. Serpent breathing has 5 forms, but don't let the low number fool you. It's the preferred style for one of the strongest Hashira for a reason. Form 1 sees the user move in a snake-like manner to release their attack in a winding pattern. The second form sees them blitz their enemy from behind and quickly slice off their head, similar to how a snake quickly strikes with no warning. The third form mimics a snake coiling around its prey in order to crush it. This technique, however, circles around the target and slices them from all directions. The fourth form is performed after leaping into the air and using a horizontal slice in order to slice the target. The fifth form curves the sword around in multiple directions to slice the enemy and can be used to slice multiple enemies at the same time simultaneously. The next breathing style is also a branch off of water breathing. This form is the flower breathing style, which will make use out of agility. This breathing style increases the vision of the user, but it comes at the eventual cost of losing their eyesight. While this breathing style has 7 forms, we've only seen 5 in the story. The second form releases several rotating slashes all at once that can deflect attacks. The fourth form uses a single slash that curves and twists. The fifth form uses 9 attacks back to back and the flow and the build on top of each other in a weaving fashion. The sixth form sees the user spin around at a high speed to deliver an attack. The seventh form is the coolest one in my opinion, though it comes at a high cost. This form raises the vision of the user to its maximum, where the perception is so great that things in the line of sight slow down. However, the strain it places on the eyes is so great that the blood vessels can rupture, and making use out of it for too long, the person can become blind. Making something this overpowered have such a high cost makes it one of my favorite breathing styles that we have in the series. The next form is the last form that branches off of water breathing and is actually a branch off of flower breathing, which is the insect breathing. This form obviously mimics insect. In particular quick striking lethal stings, hence the attacks are often thrusting and they're used in jabbing motions, and they have shallow cuts, all meant to inject the target with numerous entry points with poison. The four forms of the breathing style are the first form, which uses a leap in the air before charging the enemy to stab them multiple times with poison. The second form is the dance of the bee sting, which dashes at the target at high speeds to raise the attacker, the thrusting attack to inject the poison into them. The third form is the dance of the dragonfly. It's a 6-strike attack aimed at the weak spots like the neck and the heart in order to inject poison. The fourth form, the dance of the centipede, uses full speed of the user to move so fast that the technique can destroy wooden bridges, and it's meant to enhance the stabbing force of the poison laced inside the attack by moving at maximum speed. Up next, we have thunder breathing, a form you're very familiar with if you're a fan of Zenitsu. The purpose of this form is to mimic lightning in the form of swift strikes and movements that make use out of blinding speeds to overwhelm the target of the user. This is done by channeling strength into the legs of the user and maxing out the output of every muscle and all the blood flow in those muscles to raise the speed of the user. The breathing form is so intense that the air begins to vibrate when the breathing form is in the process of being used. With this breathing style, the first form is the foundation needed to master all the other forms. Normally, there are 6 forms to this breathing style, but there's actually a 7th form that's created by Zenitsu in the manga. The first form sees the user unsheath their katana and blitz the enemy at blinding speeds that cuts their head off before they can react, similar to how in the real world you have a sword style, very similar to a real-life sword style, and Demon Slayer isn't the first sword-based anime to show this style being used, because we see this in Rurouni Kenshin, where Kenshin Himura makes use out of this quick draw strike in order to defeat someone who's a faster swordsman than himself, in the form of the prodigy Shojuro. This form has different layers to it, however, each is created by Zenitsu. The 6th volt is an extension of the Thunderclap and Flash, which uses Thunderclap and Flash 6 times in a row while raising the power and the speed output. The same logic applies for the 8th volt, which is, as the name implies, the technique being used 8 times, and when Zenitsu uses Godspeed, Zenitsu augments the speed and strength to near maximum, and it first came at the risk of Zenitsu saying if you use it more than 2 times, it would exhaust its muscles to the point of being unable to use them again for a long period of time. However, Zenitsu raises his level of mastery to a point where he's able to use Godspeed much more than just 2 times, which you'll see in a couple of seasons in Demon Slayer after this current arc wraps up. The second form releases 5 arch slashes that use lightning in the back-to-back slashes. The third form sees the user speed blitz the enemy with waves of arch lightning that attacks them from all sides. The fourth form creates a ball of lightning that releases multi-directional lightning bolts at the enemy. The fifth form releases an upward slash for a long-range lightning slash. The sixth form releases more powerful lightning slashes from afar at the enemy. The seventh form is a form created by Zenitsu, which sees him speed blitz at a low stance with an attack that takes on the form of a lightning-shaped dragon. Thunder breathing then branches off into sound breathing, which is the next breathing style that we're going to cover. Sound breathing, as the name implies, mimics sound, and most of the techniques dish out enormous amounts of damage when being used. When Tengen Uzui uses sound breathing, he's often using musical score, which allows him to read his enemies' movements and break them down by taking into the rhythm of their movements, which allows for taking advantage of openings to deliver greater strikes. Tengen Uzui often uses this breathing style with his Nichiren cleavers. On his nunchucks, the breathing style has 5 forms, but we've only seen 3 in the manga. The first form lifts 2 swords above his head and slams them down with great force to create an explosion with bombs that dish out high amounts of damage. The fourth form sees them change the grip where the user holds his swords apart and swings them in a rapid manner to release bombs back to back, making countless explosions for simultaneous offensive and defensive purposes. The fifth form sees the user reverse their grip on one sword while spinning the chain around and releasing a large number of bombs in order to attack the enemy. Moon breathing is a breathing style that uses swift and powerful strikes to take on the pattern of a crescent moon and was created by one of the very first Demon Slayers to ever exist. This breathing style has 16 different forms, but we very likely will not see all of them being used by another human due to the nature of how some of these forms are created. The first form draws the sword and slashes in a horizontal fashion in the shape of a crescent moon, which makes numerous crescent moon blades in the process. The second form releases several crescent-shaped slashes that can be used for defensive purposes. The third form swings the sword extremely fast with 2 crescent slashes that make a large, wide spread of destruction in the area. The fifth form makes multiple curved slashes, one after the other, to make a vortex of sword slashes. The sixth form form sends out a barrage of slashes several meters in distance that can easily overwhelm the target. The 7th form uses a frontal crescent-shaped slash to make multiple multi-directional slashes in the ground. The 8th form uses a crescent slash that decreases in size but makes multiple crescent moon blades. The 9th form uses a stream of vertical and horizontal slashes along with multiple crescent moon blades with a gigantic version of the sword. The 10th form uses a long-range triple layered slash twister filled with crescent moon blades. The 14th form uses a gigantic sword to make a vortex of omnidirectional slashes that destroy everything that's come into contact with, and the 16th form uses a series of downward crescent slashes to make a 6-fold slash that rains down at the enemy. Now, stone breathing is used by the strongest Hashira, and it mimics the earth and the stone properties. Nearly all of these techniques use the ground itself and the surrounding areas in order to generate power, which can be used for offensive and defensive purposes. The first form sees the user throw their flail and axe at their target and manipulates the chain by rotating in order to make the axe and flail to rotate and drill and grind the target simultaneously. The second form throws the axe and the flail for a pincer move that can cause the flail to rebound and smash into the target from afar. The third form uses slashes with an axe to start deflecting the attacks. The fourth form sees the user use the flail and axe weapons at both ends of the chain by swinging the chain on both sides to strike the enemy at once. The fifth form sees the user use a barrage of attacks that dish out large amounts of damage, with the axe hitting first and then the flail hitting soon after. Flame breathing is another branch directly off of sun breathing and is the foundation for love breathing, which we'll discuss right after we finish the flame breathing discussion. Flame breathing mimics and replicates the flames meant to burn their enemy. There are 9 forms of flame breathing, but we only see 6 of them, and the 9th form is exclusive to Rengoku's family. The first form sees a speed blitz at the target before using a horizontal slash meant to cut off the head. The second form uses an arched vertical slash in an upward motion at the enemy. The third form uses an arched downward vertical slash. The fourth form uses a single and multiple slash attack to use in a fluid circular motion, and if needed to attack the enemy, it can also strike down multiple targets at once. The fifth form sees the user speed blitz the enemy again and unleash a series of attacks that ultimately take on the shape of a flaming tiger. The 9th form is exclusive to Rengoku's clan, which sees them speed blitz the target again in a single slash that is powerful enough to carve up the very ground that the user is standing on, and it takes on the form of a flaming dragon that swallows up the user as they speed blitz their target. Now, love breathing, as mentioned earlier, comes from flame breathing. This style can only be used by Mitsuri Kanroji due to the makeup of her body and her extreme agility. Anyone who tries to use this style will be cut up in ribbons because their body is not capable of being able to perform these attacks at this high level of speed and strength and agility that's required. The first form uses a series of extended whiplashes that overwhelms the target. The second form releases multiple whiplashes around themselves. The third form releases a series of ranged arched attacks back to back to back at the enemy. The fifth form sees the user somersault backwards through the air and release a string of attacks at the enemy. The sixth form sees the user twirl upside down while using extended slashes and retracting the slashes and repeating the process in a rapid fire manner to overwhelm the enemy at speeds that are faster than anything Tengen Uzui could ever hope to produce. Next, we have wind breathing, which has 2 other breathing styles that are branching off of it: beast breathing and mist breathing. Wind breathing mimics the movements of wind with focus on whirlwinds and strong wind torrents. The breathing style stands out because most of the attacks are purely offensive in nature and uses rotating movements and whirlwind-like slashes to attack the enemy. The stances are often open strike and high stance. The breathing style has 9 different forms. Form 1 sees the user move at a blinding speed to slash the enemy in a horizontal cyclone pattern. The second form sees the user lift the sword above their head towards the right and unleash 4 strikes at the enemy in a manner that resembles claws. The third form sees them unleash a whirlwind of slashes that can both defend from attacks and simultaneously attack the target as well. The fourth form sees them release multiple attacks down from below at their target. The fifth form sees them use arched circular slashes that increase in size from above the target. The sixth form sees them use rotation with their body to use arching slashes at an uppercutting motion. The seventh form sees them leap into the air while swinging their blade to make gale force winds to attack the target and slice them apart. The eighth form sees them leap into the air, swinging the blade to generate torrents of wind that slashes the enemy and slices them up. The The ninth form sees them backflip into the air and release a gust of wind to attack their target. Next, we have mist breathing, another personal favorite of mine, which comes as an off branch of wind breathing. Mist breathing relies on the obscurity of mist and replicates the movements for attacks and techniques that are being used as breathing style. This is why users of mist breathing wear baggy clothes so as to hide their arms and their legs to obscure their movements, making it a lot harder to read their attacks, while simultaneously drawing out the maximum potential of the breathing style itself. There are 7 forms of this breathing style, which muichiro making the 7th form and having it be unique to himself alone is really cool. So the first form uses a very powerful frontal thrust. The second form uses 8 slashes back to back to attack the enemy. The third form uses a circular slash directly in front of them to deflect projectiles. The fourth form sees the quick unsheathing of their sword while speed blitzing the enemy to slash them from below. The fifth form sees them once again speed blitz the enemy and release a wide range of attacks that cover a wide area, all while keeping their movements hard to track. The sixth form sees the user backflip into the air and release multiple slashes at their targets. The seventh form sees Muichiro, the creator of it, change the tempo of their movement to throw off the enemy, all while clouds of mist are enveloping the area, and when the user appears, their movements are faster than they look, making this the deadliest of the forms for the mist breathing. Because of the high difficulty, it's going to be to gauge the attack speed of your enemy. Finally, we have beast breathing, which mimics the breathing of wild beasts and comes from wind breathing. The breathing style has 10 different forms, each of which are equally dangerous, though some of them get very erratic. The first form sees the user stab the enemy in the neck with both blades. The second form uses a double slash at the enemy in the form of an X. The third form releases multiple horizontal slashes at the enemy, each meant to cut off their head. The fourth form is meant to be used as a diagonal double slash. The fifth form attacks everything in mid-air. The sixth form uses simultaneous slashes with both swords in a saw-like movement. The seventh form uses touch in order to find the position of the enemy and find their weaknesses by sensing the disturbance in the air. And the wide range is enough to sense the precise location of all demons hiding inside of a mountain. The eighth form sees the user blitz the target. The ninth form dislocates the joints of the user to increase the speed of the attacks being dished out. Finally, the 10th form sees the user spin the sword in a circular motion. That's gonna be it for every breathing style in Demon Slayer. The cool thing about each of these is that when you get to the breathing styles that are branches off of other branches, you can see some of the similarities in each of these, but I'm curious to know which of these is going to be your favorite breathing style. While you think that over, click here to check out these other Demon Slayer videos you see on the screen right now.